We had sports so our boys would be strong and ready for war. Okay? Now it's turned into something completely different. It has become the ritualized war. So instead of business being war, as it is with the Japanese, it's sports itself is war. But then the men dress up like clowns, they go and get drunk, and they sit there and yell and scream and live through the team that's playing instead of being real men themselves. And then there's the whole issue of, if you know how the world really works and you're informed about geopolitical developments, you do better in the stock market, you do better in investments, you do better in business, you do better in life. The world's a complex place, and if you're trying to be informed, it's hard. But if you don't care, you're going to be a slave. Now, I'm going to intersperse very important news throughout the rest of the transmission, but I wanted to finish up with why I'm harping on distractions and issues of little or no significance, like these gladiatorial bread and circus diversions that the establishment corporate media shovels down our psyches. I'm in a fight against false reality. I'm in a fight against the fantasy world that has been basically conjured and invoked and projected into our society with increasing intensity in the last 100 years. You can see the graph. The more TV we watch, the more sports we watch as a society, the dumber we get, the lower the test scores, the more bankruptcy, the more we see families breaking up, people becoming poor, people having no future. The establishment, the ruling class, openly say that they want you diverted and obsessed with things that don't matter so they can go on and control the destiny of humanity. You're only alive once, and your children are only alive once, and your family name, who you are as an individual and as a family, is under assault. The family is being dismantled in this nation and worldwide. Our industry is being dismantled by design via the United Nations. That's their stated policy that I cover in my film Endgame, Blueprint for Global Enslavement. This is so diabolical. This is so horrible. I remember over a decade ago talking about the chemicals they add to plastic that aren't even needed that reduce fertility and increase the risk of cancer. Now it's finally in the AP. It's finally in Fox News. It's finally on the news. But people still continue to drink it. You can't find gum at the store that doesn't have aspartame in it. I mean, 15 years ago, they admitted on 60 Minutes. In fact, I have a 10-minute clip of that we'll play later if we have time, but it's up on Infowars.com regardless. If you want to go watch it, where they admit it causes cancer and brain damage in these studies, in its approval. It was, the FDA refused its approval 3 separate times until they got an FDA head in who then went to work for the company that developed it after he approved it. And they know it's toxic. They know it's addictive. They know it causes brain damage. They know it causes cancer. I mean, that is a big issue. People say, why are you so upset if I get off work and go home and watch a football game? Well, if our country wasn't going to hell in a handbasket, it wouldn't be such a problem. But we're in trouble. I mean, if your house was burning down and you were sitting there watching a football game while rafters were falling in on you, I would be angry with you. And it's basically the same thing. Our society is falling apart. And our ancestors had to fight and struggle to have the little bit of liberty we've got today. As Thomas Jefferson said, even if you fight and struggle and do everything you can for liberty, in almost every case in history, societies lose to tyranny. But if you're not aware and you're not informed and you don't know how city and county and state and federal government work, and you don't know that globalism is a foreign corporate takeover of governments so they can loot the population through the power of government, you are a sitting duck. You're like basically like a sheep that's had its legs cut off and has been tied to a stake. I mean, the wolves are going to come in and eat it. It doesn't have a prayer. We don't have a prayer. And it's just so disgusting to watch full-grown adults and the governor of Ohio and the mayor of Cleveland begging and pleading for LeBron James to stay with them and having 4,000 people show up at a LeBron James appreciation event, and he wasn't even going to show up till the last 10 minutes. And then the team called him and said, you better get down here. And in national news, on CNN, Fox, ESPN, everywhere, it was, what will LeBron James's decision be? And of course it was to go to Miami where there's no income tax. Of course it was to go to Florida. Of course he wasn't staying in Ohio with an income tax or going to Chicago or going to New York. He doesn't care about you. You're a schmuck who goes and buys these $300, $400 tickets. The United States is collapsing and the media is worshiping LeBron James. They are setting the agenda. And I've seen the statistical breakdowns of the O.J. Simpson trial and all the rest of it. After a while, it gets low ratings, but the media still pushes it because they want you to be fed on a steady diet of Lacey Peterson and Lindsay Lohan. They want you to know all about Lindsay Lohan, all about Mel Gibson, and nothing about the Bill of Rights and Constitution. Nothing about the fact that the health care plan was written by the insurance companies and it raises taxes and actually cuts Medicare and Medicaid and doesn't cover people with pre-existing conditions. The Republicans lied about what it really did. They called it socialism. It wasn't even that. It was a ripoff. It was a transfer of wealth by the big banks that own the insurance companies. And the Democrats lied about what it was and said it was a free handout. You think they're going to give a bunch of dumbed-down idiots that go paint themselves up like clowns and only care about the World Cup and basketball? You think they care about you? You think you've got any future acting like an idiot? You think you can just go through life not being involved in society and not being informed, and you're not going to get burned? You're not going to get hurt? We've got to set our priorities. We've got to decide whether we want to try to fix our society, and then it's such a horrible situation we may not be able to, or whether you want to be a total slave. It's that simple. Now, the good news is it was only 5% that won the war against the British in this country, and it's going to be 5% that are going to win the info war again. And we've got a lot more than 5% today. When Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com, and I'm just one guy out here fighting the New World Order, there's many others, are receiving millions and millions of visitors a week, when videos that I post to YouTube are receiving millions of views a piece. I can spend 5 minutes, make a video, within a couple of weeks, 1 million people have watched it. Sometimes within a day, 1 million have watched it. That is threatening the system. And people are starting to wake up. They're starting to value real issues. They're starting to rediscover what made America great. And that is threatening the system. And so that's why they're coming out with this police state and trying to shut down the internet. But really what this sports culture does and what this Hollywood culture does is it teaches people to be spectators and to live vicariously through others. And that's why in every study we look at, people talk about being so empty and so hollow and so uncreative. Ladies and gentlemen, I am so fulfilled. My mind is so full of ideas and renaissance and understanding that I can hardly sleep at night. My life is so wonderful and so good because I'm fighting against tyranny. I'm following in my ancestors' footsteps. Our species, just 6,000 to 7,000 years ago, was in little ragtag hunter-gatherer bands on the verge of starvation. Just surviving was victory. And once you understand that life is about being informed and life is about being involved, you will become fulfilled. And while we're busy focused on the World Cup and Spain winning by 1 point today, and while we're obsessed with LeBron James, look at these headlines. Senate bill would make airport body scanners mandatory. TSA has already said that they're going to make them mandatory. It does record your genitals. They are scanning children. They are saving it. There have been airport workers where they make fun of the size of their organs, and then they get in fist fights and people go to jail. They are recording it, but they lied to you and said they weren't. Then they said there was no cancer risk. Turns out it's 20 to 50 times, depending on which machine, worse than what they'd originally said. Here's another one. All over the country, they're putting in grocery stores thumbprints, face scans, and breathalyzers and swiping your ID to get wine or beer. They don't just trust the clerk to swipe your license now. You're being trained for a cashless society. Look at this. Biometric entry planned for California State Park. You must thumbprint and swipe a license to be able to get into the park. This is the beast society. This is so they can track and control everything you do and tax everything you do and not let you escape the taxation grid. And it's designed to bankrupt you and make you dependent on government. This is domestication. This is happening. Continuing, academics, politicians, pending global treaty threatens free internet, fundamental rights. The world government has been formed. They're openly coming after your internet freedom because they know people are waking up, and there's been a pendulum swing against all this dumbed-down brainwashing and against the mainstream media. So government, big corporations, and mainstream media want to shut down freedom on the web. We'll cover this after we take phone calls, get into the economy, and a lot more.